Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone 2 Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of The Bend. Today, we have a wonderful friend of mine, Bill Schroeder. I guess you are the VP because Katie is she's the P, right? Katie's the P.
Yeah. Katie's the boss.
She's the boss of In Touch Practice Communication. And Katie is his wife, by the way. So she's the boss in more ways than just for the business. And Bill and I go way back. I think I first met Bill, before I even started my practice, maybe I was on the trade show floor, probably roaming around, and met Bill. And he also is, his company built my website. One of the, I think you're the third iteration that it lives with you now, Bill. And so we are in vet partners together. And Bill, I want you to tell us a little bit about your history, because you can certainly tell it better than I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile. But you always laugh because I always want to get the Marine Booyah or Semper Fi backwards. So I'm
okay. Yeah. All right. So hello, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, my friend, for having me. Yeah. So the Marine Corps. Let me clear up. It's it's URA. The Marine Corps, and Semper Fi is ours too. It's always fit.
Okay. All right. So I want to make sure I get that right, because I don't know.
You're revealing a part of my history.
That's right, a part of your history. So tell us your history. Tell us how you got from where you were, because I know where you were, and how you got into a communications company. Basically, you and Katie have an agency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So, I guess it goes all the way back. I'm a classically trained marketer, and went to school for marketing and communications. And I really thought that I really thought I was going to use that to work in radio and in broadcasting. And that was going to be my whole direction, all that kind of jazz. And Katie actually made it. She made it into Chicago radio and worked for years doing, radio within the Chicago market, right? And, radio sounds really great. It sounds like wonderful until like you're faced with the fact that there's like 10 people in back of you waiting for your gig, and there are very few people that really make tons of cash, in radio. And bottom line is Katie made a career change, and we started a firm that was based around her voice. And we were centered around doing custom telephone on hold messages. I guess the long story, and I'll shorten it down, is that we thought we were going to be huge in pizza and hospitality. Like, we thought like I was going to be like Katie was going to be like the queen of pizza, right? And long story short is that I had my own firm and in a different industry, and Katie had her firm, and we were kind of pulling in different directions. And I was helping her on the side, like many husband and wife teams do. You're familiar, right? Like, that's her business, but I'm licking envelopes and doing all the sorts of things, right? And she was doing that for mine, right? And I'll tell you, really, I'll be very honest with you about this, that I said some things that were not so wonderful. And, basically I had my space, I had my firm and she had hers. And I remember one day telling her like, hey, this little place that you've got, like, that's great and everything. Why don't you close it all up? Because it's not making any money, right? And you can do that, close it up. You can stay at home and do nothing, and or you can come to work for me because, of course, I'm more important than you are, right?
Huh?
And fast forward, and that's part of why I'm telling the story to you, is that you know I ate my words and I sold my firm and I went to work for Katie.
Yep.
So that's how I wound up here. And the issue about the pizza and the hospitality thing, 25 years ago, is when we made that switch of going complete, veterinary and a little bit of dental. We made that switch based upon the fact that we didn't care for the people within the pizza and the hospitality market. And we literally like stopped going after the clients there and put all of our eggs in the basket that is veterinary medicine. And really the number one reason is because we like the people.
Yeah. I agree with you. I've been in this profession since 1985, and I rarely have met anybody that I wouldn't want to call my friend. And I think you and I've had
Right.
that conversation before. There's
Yeah.
in our association, there's maybe one or two people that you go, he's kind of a jerk. Everybody else is amazing and just kind and ethical and really not self-serving,
Yeah.
generous in this profession. And it's one of the reasons I think that even though it's challenged right now, it will always survive and thrive in the long run because of the kind of the people who are in it. So your wife is your boss. What kind of a curveball was that for you? I mean, you guys, here you are, this like ex-Marine, and now you're giving up your agency and coming to work for your wife, who you basically patted on the head and said,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So let me tell the story incomplete, right? So, I don't think a lot of people know this, but I didn't own an agency before. I have a background in engineering, broadcast engineering, and marketing, and that's for sure. That's what I was trained to do. But when I came out of the Marine Corps, I went to work for a detective agency, and then I opened my own detective agency. So I was a private investigator for a handful of years, and that's what I thought I was going to grow. And Katie started this message on hold firm doing just telephone message on hold. And then when I came over, we started augmenting the agency to the point that it is right now. It's been a challenge, and many practices around the country understand what it's like to work with a spouse and to have to, 24/7. I mean, I've joked for many, many years that, Katie will say, we'll be, sitting watching television or whatever. And she'll go, why don't we just talk? I was like, well, we've been talking all day. Like, I want to I'm going to go out in the backyard or something.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So, when you talk about curveballs, and I think about them a lot, I'm going to throw one at you because you don't know what's happened in the last year. So, Katie and I have worked together in the agency for the longest time, and it's been a shared vision and all that kind of jazz. Well, on October 15th of 2020, right? Katie was walking our dog and was hit by a truck as a pedestrian. I mean, really bad. It wasn't, it wasn't, just brush and fall down. She suffered a tremendous brain injury, huge TBI, fractured skull, just bleeding out of her ears, the whole deal. And it happened like a mile from my house. You were at the old building. It was literally right down the street from our old building. And, she, because of, how close it was, people were able to alert me and tell me how to get there. And, I got there and was able to like find her there in that state of crazed. And that became, what I would say the biggest curveball I've ever been thrown in my life.
Yeah.
In that I was literally spending that time in denial, thinking what was going on. And to this day, we're still at a point of, we're still in recovery at this point. And it's been I guess 13 months of everything. So it went all the way from, just severe impact of TBI and all the stuff that goes with it, difficulty walking and all that kind of stuff, to today where, Katie's running errands right now by herself and driving, doing all that sort of stuff, which is really great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, actually have a friend who was riding a bike here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina,
Yeah.
6 years ago, and hit something and went over the handlebars, had the traumatic brain injury, and has had an amazing recovery from that, but still, there's still some vestiges left and some issues that she has, and she also has MS. So on top of
Oh,
that, she had two things. But it's amazing the resilience of humans and how we just keep moving forward, even though you kind of look at this and go, "Holy cow! How can we even put another foot in front of the other?" And keep life going. That's the other thing, is that life keeps going, whether you are ready to get off the bus or not. It just keeps going. I can imagine that's terrifying, Bill. I mean, Katie is my friend too, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know this.
yeah. Yeah. She's very, like, I had to ask permission
Yeah.
before I would speak about this. And this is the first time I'm speaking about it publicly.
Oh.
Some people know of the situation, and certainly people within the agency know, because it was impacted. But along what you're saying, like that whole fear and everything, there's denial, and then there are like natural protections, right? Because like I remember being in the emergency room, and like I witnessed all this, and we were probably 4 or 5 hours into it. And I had thought that she was just under the influence of whatever drugs they had given her to try to calm her down, because it was like completely from outer space, the behaviors, right? And I looked over at the neurologist, who I didn't realize was a neurosurgeon, or he was a neurosurgeon, not a neurologist. And I said, "So I've got to call my daughter. Do you know how long it'll be before she's released so we can go home?" And he looked at me like I was nuts. And he said, "Go home. I'm here because we're trying to determine, how quickly we need to, get her in for brain surgery. What are you talking about, sir?" And that didn't stop. Even a couple days in, we were like with the occupational therapist, and this young lady's like, "I'm going to get a baseline, right?" And she's saying like, "I'm going to get a baseline." I said, "Okay, well, let's see where we're going to be from here to what do we hope to achieve?" And she said, "Well, we hope and pray someday that she'll be able to do things like fasten her bra by herself." And I was like, "What are we talking about? I'm 51 years old. I'm too young for this." And it became about me for a little bit, but you know, but that was me protecting myself, because I just, and at the same time, I had such positive thoughts. I never thought that she wouldn't get through it, and every step of the way she kicked its butt. So it's been a crazy year.
Oh, wow, man. Sometimes, sometimes life just, yeah. I'm a breast cancer survivor, so I had one of those years, and you just keep plowing through it. And people said, "Oh, you did it with such grace." And I went, "Well, you tell me what the options were for that. Do you just curl up in a ball and go, 'I can't do this'? well, no, I've never been one of those people who did that.
Right.
I didn't see
Right.
Katie doing it either. Just, we're just gonna get after it. Man, Bill, I just can think that would be so terrifying. And
Yeah.
how did I really want to talk to you about fear, because I think fear is one of the biggest things that holds people back from a lot of things in life. And I had the opportunity, I laugh and say I'm one of those people who talks to people on airplanes. And as you know, I've probably never met a stranger, but I got to talk to, I think he was a colonel, and he actually led some troops in Desert Storm. And he was flying to Washington, D.C. as a defense contractor after he had retired from the military. And I said,
Mhm.
how do you lead men into battle when they know they could die? And he said, training and trust. Coming from, a military background like you did, and thinking about, you talked about your positive thoughts and overcoming this fear. People overcome fear. How do you think you work through and talk to yourself about the fear and not let it freeze you in place?
Yeah. So it's really interesting that you would say that, because that you would draw parallels behind that, because like to the military and things like that, because there's like muscle memory and automatic reaction that comes with appropriate training, and that's why it's very rare to have somebody, seize up in combat and things like that, because what happens is, and you learn this once you're in that situation, that your training just takes over. And it's almost like you have this out of body experience where you don't remember running down a particular road, or, the fear, is kind of masked by probably, I guess it's trust and faith as well, but it's also people. And when I was in the Marine Corps, I was surrounded by wonderful people that I trusted. And I have the same thing with the agency too. And, there are a lot of people that depend upon Katie and I, whether it be the and the people that I have the pleasure of working with, or the clients, or the children of both, or if you want to take it even further, the pet owners that are frequenting the practices that I represent, and all that kind of jazz, right? And when you think about that, and you're in like a weird space where you're kind of wondering what's going to happen, all that comes crashing down. And I can tell you without a doubt, my 100% positive, I'm positive about this, that my people were the reason that I didn't worry. They had, from, I never even thought about it.
Mhm.
I made one phone call and told Kristen, who is our director of operations, what had happened. And she said, what do I do? And I said, do what you do. And I got to take care of this. And she did it. And everything, yet our clients didn't experience a gap. Our employees didn't experience a gap. I mean, talk about a weird year, right? We're in COVID. We've got, the leader of the band, was hit by a truck.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
We joke. I mean, we could joke about it all the time. And Katie's sense of humor, you could probably picture, I'll get something wrong, or I'll forget a word or something, and she'll look at me and she'll, did you get hit by a truck? I'll be like, well, no.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think that's a really great lesson in empowering your people, and hiring the people that you can trust. And even talking to our veterinary audience, one of the biggest challenges that I see a lot is micromanaging and not being able to give up control. But in a situation like this, you have no choice but to give up control, and know that you've hired good people who know their jobs, who will step in. And that's exactly what happened when I was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to go through surgery and chemo and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Is my people just did it, I didn't doubt that they would, and they did it well. And you don't want people to have to face what I faced or what you and Katie faced in order to learn the lesson that you need to give your people autonomy and trust that they can do their jobs and do them well, and hire the right people. Obviously, hire the right people.
Right. And here's something, and I'll tell you that I'm right smack in the middle of this. And so it's really weird how we're at this intersection. So my talks, I'm talking at VMX in January, right? And I'm so excited to get back out on the road, right? I'm like so incredibly excited about it. And I was teaching to a group of people over this past weekend. This just happened 2 days ago, right? And one of the exercises that I ran them through was I wanted people to develop a list of the top 10 blog posts that they could create for their practice. And during the session, and we're on Zoom, I'm querying the room, and I'm like, okay, so give me your ideas, shout them out, let's develop a top 10 list here is the thing, And this one gal on the call is like totally spot on. She's right on all of the things she's talking about. In fact, I would say that out of her 10, 6 or 7 of them were on my list to make sure that people mention. Okay. So she's totally in tune. Afterwards, I reach out to her to compliment her, thinking that she's got some, background in marketing, and she's like, listen, I was so afraid to take your course because I don't have any marketing background. I've worked in the practice for years. I'm a CSR. I don't do this. I'm taking this course on my own. And I'm like, so do you do any of the marketing in the practice? And she goes, nope, it's owner driven. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And so to your point, right? To your point, I'm changing my talks for VMX. I'm adding in a component that is especially about recognizing and empowering the people within the practice, because this young lady is right under their nose and they're looking beyond her, but she's got all the right ideas. It's amazing.
It goes back to, what do we know about From Good to Great? Get the right people on the bus, but get them in the right seat.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, you've got to know your people. So you can't manage from a desk. You've got to walk around. You've got to know your staff. You've got to know what they like, what they're good at, what suits their personality. And you got to put them in those places where that they flourish.
Yep.
Rather than, can I do inventory? Yeah, I can do it. You put me in inventory, counting inventory. I hate it. It's boring.
Right.
I have many people.
Right.
Put me at the front desk. You'll never have another client complain because I can handle anybody that comes up there, no matter how bitchy they are. But that's the beauty of having such a diverse group of people that you can bring into your practice or bring into your business and have work for you. And then you utilize them in the way that they need to be utilized, in a way that makes them happy. Because when that happens, they stay, right? And we don't.
100%.
They stay. Oh my gosh. And, right now, as I said, everybody was quitting their jobs, but there are practices out there who don't have turnover, whose people are happy in their culture, and they're well paid, and they're well utilized, and they're not going anywhere.
No.
Those practices are going to rock it because.
Well, you're right. And to your point, like, you could sit at the front desk and you can answer the calls. You can do inventory. Heck, a lot of veterinarians can do, and practice managers can do a lot of different things. But in the end, you're going to be angry and exhausted.
Yes.
And your effectiveness in all those different categories is going to diminish greatly as time goes on because of exhaustion and anger, so it's all about the people for me.
It is people. And we work in a profession that I can't even tell you how many times I've had people say to me, I love animals, this is why I do what I do. I'm like, guess what?
Okay.
Guess who drove them over to you? How about that? Wow, Bill. Now I don't even know where to take my interview because I'm so sorry. So Katie's doing great. So I'm excited that she is doing great. And
Yeah.
I look forward. Is she coming to VMX with you?
We're not sure yet.
Are you sure yet? Okay. All right. Well, you give her a big hug for me because
I sure will.
she's glad.
Sure will.
I'm glad she's running errands again, even though it's maybe not the things she wants to do in life. But hey, that's a big progress from that.
Debbie, it's 100%. And it's really recently that she's driving on her own, right?
Yeah.
And it was so funny because she would call me and she'd like, she'd wind up at Home Depot or something. And she'd say, I'm at Home Depot, I'm going to run in, but then I'm going to go out and I'll call you before I go to, Whole Foods or whatever. Right. And I used to find comfort behind that, and I like just recently within the last 10 days said, okay, you don't have to stop. You don't have to you got this, you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's feeling great. So yeah, so thanks for your kind words.
Oh, that's good. Well, I'm awfully glad. Well, that's huge. I do want to talk to you. You mentioned something about being a speaker at VMX, and I know that you are a great speaker.
Thank you. As are you.
Oh, thank you. But your classes are so energizing. I even got in trouble in one of your classes, right?
Yeah. You got in trouble, and you got me in trouble.
Trouble just because I answered a question. Oh well. Anyway, but that's an inside story. We won't tell all of this. So Bill, how did you move from? I mean, you've told me a little bit about your background and your history, so I can kind of see where you got into speaking. But what was that kind of career pivot? I mean, you really were a vendor at these conferences, and the next thing you know, you're up here on the speaking circuit.
Yeah. So what happened was, I was at a meeting. It was Western Vet, and there was a particular speaker who will go nameless, and this person was up there speaking about marketing. And I had brought a new person with me to see this. And everything that this person was saying was inaccurate or dated at best. And this person that I brought with me, a new employee that I thought I was just going to, show the room and the climate that is, veterinary medicine. This person's like pinching me and then writing letters like, that's wrong. That's inaccurate. Yeah. And in the end, when we got up and left, I listened to people say that they don't know what to do and that they feel like, okay, that's great. I can still hear this one guy saying like, thanks, you just presented a problem to me without a solution. And these people were saying this as they walked. You know how you're like exiting like cattle call, And I decided at that point. And by the way, this person read their slides, bullet point slides off of the thing. It was just crazy. And I thought, I know a couple of jokes and I have some information to share. I will see if someone would like to listen. And that was like 15 years ago. And I have not looked back since. And it turns out to be my very favorite thing in life. The year before the pandemic, I spent 175 nights on the road.
Oh, wow.
And I loved every minute of it. I was away from my girls, but in the end, I really love it.
Yeah.
Helping people and watching those light bulbs go off, helping them understand with real information is why I got into it.
Yeah. Yeah. The light bulb moments are what makes you keep going back because you can see. You can see your audience if you're a good speaker and you're interacting with your audience, and you can see that something that you told, a story that you told, clicked, and they went, "Oh, that makes sense. I understand it. Finally, somebody said it in a way that I get it, and I can take it and I can use it." And I swore I've a couple of compliments as a speaker in my time.
I bet.
And people have said, how do you get there? And I said, look, I swore I have sat through so much misery listening to somebody read slides and drone on that I swore I would never be that speaker if I was ever given the opportunity, that I would work so hard to not do that. And, some subject matters, if you're thinking about it, it's pretty dry. I mean, financial stuff, the number stuff, it's pretty dry. But even then, you can make it entertaining. I mean, I've told stories. I gave a lecture on profit and loss statements one time, and then it was an interactive game, and they had to do kind of a let's make a deal. Would you buy this veterinary hospital? There's ways to do stuff. I gave my last lecture at AHA was how to talk to strangers, and we had a scavenger hunt. And so people had to go and find like people who had a hidden tattoo or who were afraid of spiders, but they had to learn how to start a conversation with somebody that they didn't know. So
hey, that's a really nice idea. That's a great topic.
Yeah. So we had fun with doing that stuff. So you can make, if you put the effort in and the imagination into it, you can make it great. And your subject is so important for people to understand, because marketing is not just paying an agency to build a website for you. It is everything that you say and do in your business that tells your brand story. And, if you say one thing, and, Eric Garcia is a friend of ours, and I've heard Eric say, it doesn't matter how good your marketing is if you've got somebody at the front desk that's an ass. When they answer the phone and they're a jerk. Well, everything you've spent has been wasted.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And, I think it goes even deeper than that, because these days, a lot of people don't need what the typical marketer is selling, if you will. Okay. And let me fill that in a little bit. So like, practices have never been more busy. The phones are ringing off the hook. The appointment books are, 5 weeks out and without an end in sight. And although we are seeing a little bit of a plateau, by the way, yeah, we are seeing a little bit of a plateau. And that's probably in the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks that I'm seeing it with all of our benchmarking. But it's important to realize that done correctly, you should be using your marketing to engage talent so that you can acquire prospective employees. You should be looking at your client base and narrowing them down to the point where you are aligning with the best clients. Like, hey, you've got this opportunity where you're booked up like crazy, and you've got a particular segment of your client base that, isn't, I don't know, they're not a fan of diagnostics, right? And you got to fight them every time you turn around, for blood work or whatnot. Yeah. They don't fit into your practice mold. Move on and start communicating with those that do. And it's at this point that you can start really honing in on the type of pet owner that you want, and marketing is a part of that. Mm-hmm. But you're totally right. So yeah, very good point, Debbie.
Yeah. So looking back on all the things that you guys have done as a business, what do you think your biggest mistake was?
Let me get out my list. I've got my big list of it's a list that's pretty long. I made 1 or 2,000 mistakes. I would say that my biggest mistake, and it's going to go back, is exactly what we talked about earlier. Remember how I talked about that veterinarian that would be exhausted and his work quality would diminish? I learned that story or that lesson early on because that person that I described was me. I really thought that I could do the best at most of the things. And so it was, I guess, a little bit of inappropriate self worth or I don't know. I was inflated ego, maybe, and then there was a little bit of, I don't want to overburden someone because I know how hard they work. Mm-hmm. So don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to do that. I'll just do it. Right? As soon as I learned about the genius that surrounded me, and I learned that if I empowered them and I let them do the things that I hired them to do, and I did so with trust, wow, great things happen. Yeah. And, I now talk about trust a lot. And I'll talk about this at DMX, so I'm going to steal a little bit of my own thunder, but can you, this is a question, can you think of a successful relationship of any sort that doesn't have trust as a foundation?
Absolutely not.
Right. And
marriage, business, parenting, everything. You've got to trust that other person is not going to harm you, because if you can't trust them, you can't ever get out of your limbic brain. You can't get past your fear. And I've talked to this a lot about the veterinarians who blow up at their staff members. If something goes wrong, they make a mistake. Well, the only thing that happens is you create such fear in those people that they can't learn, because when our limbic brain is taking over, our smart part, the cerebellum, can't function and they can't learn. So basically you're creating in them learned helplessness, and not in any way, shape, or form the results you wanted to get by making this harsh correction. So you've got to figure out a better way to show people how to do things correctly, give them appropriate feedback, but appropriate feedback.
Right, 100%. And so I ask clients a lot, like, what are they doing to build trust and maintain trust, and to maybe, if we're going to talk again about marketing, because that's everything that I think about, like, you're trying to earn the attention of associates or veterinary support staff, right? I mean, technicians, nurses, CSRs, practice managers.
Mm-hmm.
And the good people are already at another practice, right? I mean, while you may have an appetite for training new people, most people are looking for the seasoned people at this point because of how busy they are. Mm-hmm. And I have this vision in my head of, like, this person jumping out of an airplane, and I wonder how much trust it took for that person to get into that airplane and to ultimately jump out. Like, they got to trust the plane, the pilot, the parachute, themselves. Mm-hmm. And when you look at when someone's moving from a trusted, safe place like Earth and going up into the sky, or a practice where they're getting a steady paycheck, what trust messaging or signals are being sent out by you or your employees that will provide someone the confidence that they can come from a safe place into another safe, better place? Mm-hmm. So it was trust. And once I learned that, and I learned that it was all about the people and empowering them, wow, great things. And then we grew like crazy. Then I don't know.
Yeah, and figure today, right? And here we are today. Yeah, because I guess I've known you. Maybe I first met you like 2008, 2009, when I started working. I was actually on the trade show floor with Steve Kaiser and Baja and stuff. It's a convoluted story. But your booth was much smaller, and then I watched this booth get bigger and bigger, and then I watched the more and more people come, and you're right, it just exploded. But it explodes because the work is good, and
it's the dad jokes.
It's the dad jokes, between you and Matt Soleil with the puns. Every Friday Matt puts a pun up on LinkedIn. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah. So Bill, let's talk about networking, because you and I met through networking, and we know a lot of folks. Tell me what you think the value of networking is in your life and your business.
I would say that it's very, very important. It was, believe it or not, it wasn't something that I was very comfortable with when I first started. I think that most people would put me in the category of an extrovert, but I'm not. Mm-hmm. I'm an introvert. And I would much rather or at least I used to be. Maybe I'm a recovering introvert. I don't know,
You're,
but I
yeah, maybe me. I'm an introvert. Yeah.
yeah, maybe I would much rather like sometimes sit just by myself and watch a ball game and just do that, right? So going out and glad handing, that's how I looked at it. Like, okay, I'm just like shaking your hand and passing off a business card and having conversations about the weather. That's that's how like I viewed networking. And then the first time I was able to help someone to the point that I was able to like have them say, I'm glad that I met you. And right around that same time, I was glad I met another person. I realized the power of networking, right? But I'm still very cautious of like the weather conversation that could exist, right? I'm
Yes.
still very, very cautious of that because I just don't want to waste anybody's time. So I love networking. I love being with people and helping them achieve their goals or better themselves. So for that reason, I think it's extremely important. And we both do that a lot through vet partners, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think that's probably the big value of being a member of Vet Partners, that you actually can go and have a conversation with somebody who maybe is in a business similar to yours or completely different from yours, but still gives you a different perspective, and you can have a really interesting conversation with people, and they speak the language, because veterinary medicine is kind of a unique business, and the conversations that we have can rank from anywhere from hilarious to disgusting at any particular point in time.
You know,
It's good to be in a crowd of people who go, oh, I totally get that what we're talking about here. Um, but like you, I mean, people laugh when I tell them I was shy as a child. I'm like, no way. But I think one day I just kind of had this epiphany that everybody was as uncomfortable as I am about making contact with strangers, and that if that's so, then why wouldn't I just make it easier for them to do, to meet me, or to have me meet them, rather than trying to make it difficult. And so once I had that kind of epiphany, it made it easier for me. And the other thing I think that's really important is the way you look at networking is, like you said, the day that I could help somebody, the day that I put two people together that I considered friends, that said, oh, you guys would be good to know each other.
right.
This is a valuable connection for you. And it didn't have anything to do with me. I'm just the person who's like the matchmaker. So one of my really favorite things to do in this world is to do that kind of stuff, and to put people together that can help each other, completely separate from anything that I do.
Yeah.
And you
Mhm.
feel like you put good out in the world, and it'll come back to you. And that's just the way I look at it.
Amen. Like 100%. I've got a very good friend that um he's just a super duper successful person and a wonderful person at the same time. And he's taught me so many lessons about giving, and like he said to me one time, he's like, it's almost like the more that I give, the more that I get back. It's almost like I want to give everything that I've got because I know that I'm going to round the corner and I'm going to get twice as much as I have.
Mhm.
And that's not only financial, there's obviously, other things that fall into that play, but I think it reigns true.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So Bill, looking back on all the challenges you've had, certainly this year, but in building an agency, building a business, um, what career advice would you give somebody who was
Hmm.
thinking about making this move? Because I think the analogy that you gave of jumping out of an airplane into the unknown, uh, that's huge. I mean, that is. I think that's one of the reasons is that people kind of stick in jobs that they don't really like, or these toxic situations they don't really like, is because I don't trust that going forward is going to be any better than where I am right now.
Right. I would say so. There's that bit of advice, exactly what you just said. I would put that first, and then I would say know who you are and pay attention to transparency and honesty, and you know, um, I was just recently speaking with Kristen, our director of operations, and you know, there was an issue that I had to make a decision on or something, and I can't even honestly, I can't remember what it was that we were dealing with. And I told her, I said, let me give you some advice here. I would much rather, in this situation and all other situations, I'd rather lose with integrity than win with, dishonesty or deceit or anything less than transparency. And she's like, we've got to talk about that within our people. And we do, but not directly to say that, because it's like, I don't know. I don't think we've got a whole bunch of deceit or dishonesty, running, through the agency. My point is, take that higher road, and then you never need to worry about things. Like, you sleep well, you don't worry about who you're going to run into at a conference, or you're going to run around the corner, or somebody's going to round the corner on the trade show floor, and all of a sudden they're going to be screaming and yelling at you.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that I don't have to worry about that. And I would recommend anyone that was going to make a career change or go into business, I guess, to have that same mindset.
Yeah. I think knowing your own core values, and I don't think people spend a lot of time thinking about that and determining their own core values. And mine stay right above my desk all the time. And integrity is there. And I've had people, the more, I guess, notoriety you get, the more recognition you get out there, companies will call you up and go, hey, will you endorse my, whatever it is, my widget, and I'll pay you X amount of dollars. And I said, look, first of all, I don't know your widget. Maybe I don't even like your widget, and you can't pay me to do that, because if I like it, I'll tell people about it for free. And if I don't like it, you can't pay me enough to tell people about it. So there you go. I actually had somebody, you'll appreciate this, Bill. One of the web design companies called and said, we'd really like to work with you. I know. I said, I'm really don't think I have the bandwidth to do that. Maybe there's a conflict of interest with this other company. Oh no, are you really sure? And I went, yeah, okay, look, I really don't like your websites. I really don't like anything built. So no, I'm not going to work with you. I'm really sorry. I tried to be nice about it, but no, thank you. But I think that's important, because you're right. You don't want to go through life looking around the door, waiting for, something to jump out at you because of something shady that you did in the past. And you never have to worry about getting caught in a lie if you don't tell one.
Hey, if you do good things, right, and you do really good work, it's more difficult, it's more expensive, but it works for people. Like, I don't even know how else to say it. I mean, it just plain old works. And in our industry, I'm always amazed by the fact that we're obviously very specialized, my agency, right? And we're super honed in on exactly, veterinary medicine. And when you think about it, people that rise to the level where they need our services are probably in the same age bracket. They're probably fishing right at that same age bracket. And geographically, all the people around them probably went to the same school. So when you think about going to VMX or Western or any of the meetings, and you talk about, I always vision like the alumni gatherings. Yeah. And there's two conversations that can take place. The person can walk up to a peer that they knew from vet school, who they trust and they went through, hard times with, and hear good things about you, or they can hear really. And I would recommend that people envision those conversations taking place about them. And that advice alone, I think, is
and act accordingly.
My advice. It's my advice, so I'm going to think it's good advice. But.
I like it. I always say, what will people say about you at your funeral?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it takes 6 people to carry your coffin. So you better make some friends along the way.
I haven't heard that one in a long time.
Yeah. So Bill, let's wrap this up and talk about a fun fact. What's something fun about you that people might not know?
Okay. So, I mean, I already kind of tipped my hat there and told you the private investigator thing. I've got two beautiful daughters. Madison is a second-year law student in Indiana, and her younger sister Lily is at Indiana as well. She's going to be a teacher. I would say that a fun fact outside of the fact that I was a private investigator is that in the Marine Corps, I was a helicopter mechanic. So by trade in the Marine Corps, if you've got a helicopter, Debbie, just fly it on by. And if you got problems with the jet engine or the transmission, I got you. I got you.
Good to know. If I ever invest in a helicopter, that I know somebody who can
fly it on down
and fix it.
I got all your maintenance for you.
Sounds good, Bill. Sounds good. All right. Any final words of wisdom? We will put your contact information in the show notes, but do give a plug for In Touch while we're here on the podcast. And if you have a favorite book, favorite quote, anything you'd like to share with the audience that we didn't ask about, please share it at this time.
You know, I would highly recommend I read it over and over again or listen to it. Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I think that's really cool. And I'm just starting. Katie read it, and I'm just starting it. A Tribe of Mentors. But yeah, those would be the two things. But you know, if there's one thing that I could say, you know, of course, thank you, Debbie, for this opportunity to spend time with you. Thank you for the many years of friendship that we've shared, and for all of the kind things that you've done for me over the years. I'm very, very, very grateful for that. I guess the last thing I would just hope that everyone would go out there and be kind to one another. We're in a great, like, the world is the weirdest space right now. And literally, you know, we've been lighting our cities and our relationships on fire. And if you can go out there and you can be kind to one another and spread some really good stuff, that I would appreciate that. So if you're around a VMX, I hope to see you. You know, you can come and heckle me. I think I'm on the first day.
Okay.
So I will be fresh and come and heckle. And I'd like to see you there. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity. So thank you.
Well, thank you again for your time, Bill. And I'm so glad to hear that Katie's doing well, and wish her to continue recovering like she has, like a rock star. And I will see you at VMX, and I will come and sit on the front row and give you a hard time. So
be prepared for a big hug, okay?
Right. Absolutely. Completely vaccinated, booster, the whole 9 yards. We'll see you.
I'm all good.
All right. All right. Thank you, Bill.